Okay. Hope everyone can see the screen.
Yes,
Yes.
Shubhu, your screen is
Oh,
visible.
okay, great. Sounds good. All right. So let me go ahead and we'll continue with our agenda today. Like, we left off at data extensions, a little bit into data extensions yesterday. So we'll do a quick recap. Let me go to our data extension slide. Give me 1 second. Okay, so we talked about why we need data extensions, because like list subscriber lists are primarily not very flexible. You only be able to store subscriber information. So if you want to bring in non-subscriber information, or you want to bring in relational data, etc. So we want to have a better data structure, like more flexible, that you can actually create your own fields, different data sets and all that. Uh, some background noise. Can you guys go on mute? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So then we talked about how to actually look at data extension from a creation standpoint. We can actually create new like from scratch. We can create a data extension. We can create as an existing data extension from that is already existing, and we can create from a template. Okay. And then we saw how do you actually create a standard data extension, and then the different field types that you can actually configure within that, and then I was talking about yesterday, if it's a sendable one, you should be able to provide an email address within that, so that marketing cloud knows that that is the email ID to be used to be sent when you do the email send. Was there a question? Oh, okay. All right. Okay, so the field types, like I mentioned yesterday, these are different field types that you can configure. Most commonly, we would use like text, Boolean, date, numbers, email, definitely. Sometimes decimal, phone. So one thing that you need to note about decimals, they've actually put a note here. If you missed it yesterday, like if you say decimal 4,2, it actually means 4 digits in total. And then 2 after the decimal. It's not like 4 digits before the decimal. So that's something you might need to keep in mind when you configure. We looked at retention policy. So as a best practice, like I mentioned, you always need to set retention policy for your data extension, primarily to save space. You don't want to keep data in forever if it's not going to be used. Okay. And we talked about sendable and testable data extension. So if you're planning to store subscriber information, then you need to check that box as a sendable data extension. And if you're planning to use it for testing purposes, you additionally need to use that as is testable. That is not something that you will be using for an email sent to production users. So it's just for internal testing purposes. Okay. And the testable data extension should always be a sendable one, meaning that there should be a subscriber within that, meaning that will be probably your internal users. You cannot have non-subscriber information that is not sendable and mark it as testable, right? It's always is sendable and is testable, or only is sendable, or neither of the two. Okay. Okay, so that's where we left off yesterday, and I want you to pay very close attention to this particular slide. Like initially when I had actually got introduced to email studio, it was not very, somebody did not tell me exactly what was happening behind the scenes, right? I understood there is list, there is data extension, but how does it all map together, when you send emails to the list in to people in the list in on the subscriber list, or when you send email to the people in the data extension, how does it all map together, right? So we saw yesterday, we talked about subscriber list. Very straightforward. Each list has a subscriber or one or more subscribers in that. If you send, they will get an email, and then it automatically the status will get updated in the list as well as the all subscribers list. That's what we saw yesterday, right? But then we also saw that that we can have subscribers in a sendable data extension. So I can actually store a customer information in a data extension as well. And then we said we can send email to them as well. So how does that get related? Because at the end of the day, every subscriber that you actually send email to has to be shown here in the all subscribers list. Okay. If either is if it's from a list or from a data extension, they should end up in the all subscribers. You cannot have a subscriber in a data extension where you have sent an email and then he can reside only there and not show up in the all subscribers list. Okay. So list to us on all subscribers, there is a direct mapping because they have the same structure. Okay, like we said yesterday, they have the email ID, they have the subscriber key, the profile attributes, and the preference attributes, right? So it's very easy to map. Like it's a one-to-one mapping between all subscribers and each of the list. So anybody who gets added here will automatically get updated to all subscribers. Straightforward, right? But data extensions is not that way. Like even if you have a sendable data extension, you are saying like, it's a sendable data extension. It can have a totally different structure. Like yesterday, we saw in a few slides before, like, it had like different fields, right? That has nothing to do with probably with the profile attributes or the preference attributes. Like, it may not have that. But then, like I said, what are the two mandatory fields that you need for a subscriber that we saw yesterday? The two mandatory things that you will need to identify a subscriber in Email Studio.
A subscriber key and the email ID.
Perfect. Yeah, so it's the subscriber key and the email address. So we said for the sendable data extension, we should actually configure an email address field, right? And then when we actually configured yesterday the data extension, towards the bottom part, remember I showed you like, there was a send relationship. Okay, we actually said like, customer ID maps to the subscriber key, right? So let me go back to the tool here. So if we go in, like, if I go to a particular data extension, so here at the bottom, like when you are actually configuring it, there was actually a drop down that was saying like, the drop down that showed and says relates to subscriber key on subscribers on a particular subscriber key, right? So we were actually like, choosing the customer ID from that. So in this, what it basically asks you, when you're actually configuring a sendable data extension, it will ask you which field in your data extension maps to the subscriber key. Okay, so you have to choose it. It will not let you like, finish the configuration of the data extension unless you choose that. Okay, so if you click on this, you will actually have seen this at the bottom when you had configured the data extension. So you have to choose which field you have to like map to the subscriber key. If you don't do that, like, email Marketing Cloud and Email Studio will not know which field is going to map back to the all subscribers list. So in this particular case, I am saying like, this data extension is a sendable data extension, right? And the customer ID is the one that actually maps to the subscriber key. And I have an email address field here. Okay, so as far as Marketing Cloud is concerned, it has the two required fields that it needs to update the all subscribers list. So anytime I send like, an email to this data extension, it will actually go and check like, if this customer ID exists in that all subscribers list. If it does, it will look at the status of that particular subscriber there. Okay, so this diagram here, it will actually go and check here in this all subscribers list. Okay, it will ask like, okay, is this person active? Okay, or is his status unsubscribed? If it is unsubscribed, then it will say do not send any email to that person, because that subscription like, status is actually meant like, always maintained here. If we did not do this mapping, what would have happened? Like, the problem is like, you will have like subscribers stored in different sendable data extensions, and you will have no clue if they actually unsubscribed all, or like, they have like opted not to receive any communication from you. So you need a central location for you to be able to track subscriptions, right? So that is this all subscribers list. So irrespective of where your subscribers are, where you maintain that either in a list or a data extension, before a send happens, it will always check with the all subscribers list, okay, and see, can we send a communication out to this person? Okay, so if the status is active, or if it is bounced, it will be sent out. If it is undeliverable, or if it is unsubscribed, it will not be sent to that person. Okay, so that is something you need to know. We looked at the statuses shortly yesterday, so just to keep in mind. So then the mapping now happens, like, so if I'm having like, 100 subscribers in this data extension, and when I'm sending it, like, it will always check like, okay, this person is he unsubscribed or not? Okay, if it is not, it will send. Now, uh, uh, most cases, like, when we actually try to send it to the data extension, it will ask us one thing, like it will ask you choose a list, like, that you want to associate to, because at the end of the day, a list is a subscriber. It's a copy of this all subscribers list, right? It has the same data structure, right? So it will give you two options. One, either you can map it directly to the all subscribers list, or you can map it to a list structure. Okay, and that specific list that maps to a data extension is called a publication list. Okay, so it's not this regular subscriber list that you create here. Is it'll ask you specifically, like I'll show you shortly in the tool, like when you actually try to send it out to data extension as an audience, it'll automatically pop up a window and say choose the publication list. Okay, and in that there will be two options. Either you can choose one of these publication lists that you have actually created, or it'll give you an option. If you want, you can tag this all subscribers list. Okay, so now you will have a question like, okay, or like you might come across a scenario like, okay, how do I know which one to choose, right? So if you actually map it to the all subscribers list, okay, what happens is when I'm sending an email to this somebody, a subscriber in this particular data extension, and assuming that person is in both data extensions, and there's two different sends. Okay, maybe first I'm sending a newsletter email today to this particular data extension. Next time I'm going to send an email with voucher codes or something like that maybe I have weekly vouchers that I'm sending out to them, some coupon codes and all that, right? So when I sent this particular email with the newsletter to this data extension, and let's say I have a customer subscriber here, he unsubscribes. If he unsubscribes, and if you are mapping it to all subscribers list, what happens is he will show up automatically as unsubscribed in this list, then which means we cannot ever send him an email from Marketing Cloud unless he comes back and says, okay, I want to get activated, and then we reactivate him, right? But automatically it gets done, and he doesn't know that. All he did was he clicked on unsubscribe link. He never clicked unsubscribe all. Okay, he clicked on unsubscribe on that particular newsletter email that he got, but because we mapped it directly to the all subscribers during the time of send, he will automatically get unsubscribed from all communications. So it is never recommended that when you send an email to a data extension, you map it to an all subscribers list unless you have a specific use case that needs to happen that way, right? It's always recommended that you use a publication list. Publication list, primarily it means it is a list, a type of list, the same structure as like a subscriber list or the all subscribers list, where you cannot go and create any person. It will automatically get populated with the people that you are actually having in this data extension. It will get populated and it will mirror it back to the all subscribers list. It is very useful when you have different types of publications. For example, the case that I gave you, right? If you are sending newsletter as one of the communication, if you are sending weekly vouchers, or if you're sending a welcome kit. So each one is a different type of publication or a communication that you're planning to send out, okay? And every time I'm sending a type of, like if I'm sending a newsletter communication out, and if I'm using a data extension with that, if I tied it to this particular publication list, the good thing is when a person actually unsubscribes for that newsletter, for this email that was sent for the newsletter, it will only be unsubscribed at the publication list level. Okay, he will still remain active at all subscribers list. Okay, so that means if that person is in this data extension too, and if I'm sending a weekly voucher email later to him, he will still receive it. Okay, so that's the best part. So I can selectively unsubscribe for the publications that I do not want to receive, and the others I can remain active. Okay, which is why using publication list is very, very important and you should have a publication list when you send an email to a data extension. It is mandatory. You should have a list, either the all subscribers or a publication list when you do a send email to a data extension. For a list, you don't need to do that. It is already a copy of an also, it's a type of a list already. So it's a direct one-to-one mapping. You can directly send to this list A or list B or list C. And if you unsubscribe directly, it will unsubscribe at the list level itself. It will not unsubscribe at the all subscribers list level, unless and until you do a unsubscribe all. Okay. So any question on this one? This is quite important for you to understand the real background of what happens, how the list, data extensions, publication list, and the all subscriber list mapping happens.
Hey Shibu,
Yes.
Ujjwal, can you show us how, so when there have been occasions when I have created a one-time use data extension to send some kind of notification, and I think I have not seen this the option to relate the data extension with some publication list.
Okay, so let me just show you that 1 second. So we've actually have okay, so this is a sample email that I've created. Okay,
Yeah.
so yesterday when we went, when we do the send, I showed you how to select an audience, right?
Yeah.
So in audience, yesterday we were actually selecting a list, but now let's go and select a data extension. Okay, so if I go to customer DE, which is a sendable data extension, and I create and I'm adding it to a targeted. Okay, so here, see here, as soon as I click on targeted, it will ask you, can you please select a publication list? By default, it will put it at the all subscribers. So the problem is if you put it at all subscribers, and if this person unsubscribes from this email, he will get unsubscribed from everything. So if I'm sending it out as a weekly newsletter, I should select that publication list. Okay. So it will not let you proceed unless you actually select one here. So in your case, probably if you're using the old classic one or the user initiated configuration
We
to do that.
use user initiated, yeah, because for us,
yeah, in that one, it will default to the all subscribers if you haven't chosen a publication list. So which is also something that you need to review. When you review that, make sure you select a publication list. If you don't have that, you have to create one. Okay.
Great. Okay.
Okay, sure.
Thanks.
Okay, so let me go back to this. Any other questions on this mapping? Any doubts on like how this maps back?
No.
Okay, cool.
Question.
Yes.
Can create any number of publication list, or this is the system defaulted, the 3 examples which you gave?
Good question. So by default, it is actually empty. So you can actually go and create any number of publication lists that you need. Okay. Sorry, let me go here to publication lists. So as you see here, I just created 3, right? So I can go ahead and just click on create, click any one that I want. And then if I show it as public, later on I will show you remember I told you there's something called subscription center, right? So a subscription center is where the subscriber can actually go and check his options. So right now, whatever I've actually created here, these 3 are actually something that you can have marked as public. So let me actually show you that so you get a better idea. When I receive an email, and there is a link to the subscription center in that email. So this is how this subscription center will look to me when I'm external customer. Okay. And this is something that you might also be familiar with. Sometimes you might have received an email which has a subscription center link. You will go and see, okay, what are the available publications? So if I am a customer and I'm looking at it, and if I'm saying, well, I am okay to get the monthly e-magazine and weekly promotions, but I don't want the newsletter every week. Okay. So if I do these 2 and I click update, then automatically I will be subscribed to these 2, but this particular publication list, I will be shown as unsubscribed. Okay. So then next time when a communication happens, and if my name is in that list, of this weekly newsletter, in the data extension, it is there, I will not get the weekly newsletter, but I will still get the e-magazine and the promotions whenever it's sent out. Okay. So I can choose, if I want, I can uncheck all of these. Okay. And if there's any new other communication that comes in, then that can still come in. I haven't unsubscribed from everything yet. Okay. So if a new publication has been added, and if it gets added as a public one, it will show up here as well.
Thanks. One more question. Can I share this publication list with my other BUs? I think you have answered this question, but just want to confirm this part also.
I haven't checked that. Gilda, do you know if it is actually configured on a BU level?
I'm sorry, what was the question? Good morning. Hello, everyone.
Hey, Gilda. The publication list, if we configure it, it's available on the BU level, right? It's not on the enterprise to the others, right?
Correct. And then you also never want to really work out of the enterprise instance. You always want to focus on working through the BU level.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So this is correct. Actually, sorry. So this is actually I have a different set of publication lists that I've configured on the enterprise level, and they don't show up here. So for every BU, you can actually go and create your own publication lists.
Thanks, Shivu.
Cool. Any other questions on publication list?
Just one question, Shivu.
Sure.
I came to know. I mean, clear on the subscriber list is mapped 1-to-1 with the all subscriber, but this one I'm be clear on the publication side. If a publication list is mapped with data extension and then it connects with the all subscriber.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So one thing you need to notice is when I create this publication list, you cannot actually go and add anybody here. Okay. You can only export. So how do you get people added here? That automatically gets added when the send happens to the data extension. So if I have 100 customers or 100 subscribers that I'm sending an email to in that data extension, those 100 people will be getting added to this the first time. Okay. And then that will automatically get mapped back to your all subscribers list as well. Okay. And the status of that particular subscriber will depend, like, if that particular subscriber is already existing in all subscribers, that status will reflect here. Let's say if I'm like 5 of those folks are already there in all subscribers and their status is unsubscribed, irrespective of like what you're actually maintaining in your data extension, it will show up as unsubscribed here, meaning like, you will not be able to send out. But if they're coming in for the first time, it will automatically default to active. Even if they are in all subscribers and showing as active, it will show up active here as well. Later on, if somebody unsubscribes that email to this particular e-magazine publication list, right? Here in this particular publication list, it will show as unsubscribed. Okay, but in the all subscribers list, it will still show up as active unless and until they do an all unsubscribe, like full unsubscribe. Okay, hope that helped.
Yeah, got it. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Okay, so similar to publication list, there is something called suppression list. Okay, so suppression list is like, if you want to like I showed earlier. So this is like like yesterday we saw, if you want to exclude a particular list, you can actually click on the list and then exclude, right? So similar to that, if you want to like use a suppression, you can use a suppression list as well. So the exclusion list primarily, like, that is a normal list of subscribers that you can even send an email to, right? So you're not, creating a particular list and saying like, okay, this list is always going to be used as like, people that we will not send to. Okay. So in a particular context, when I'm saying, okay, we want to like, not send people who are in this list when I'm sending to another list, that is when you use a exclusion list context, right? But then if I want to like, store a list of people that I never want to send to, right now for a particular send, okay, then I can create something called suppression list. Okay, so there is like, sometimes like I have a set of bounced users that I don't want to like, send next time. Okay, I can move them into a bounced user suppression list, or if I have some competitors for a particular send, I'm not supposed, or some partners that should not be getting an email when I send it to thing, I can add them in, like, I can go in and then I can import the set of those people with their email address and then subscriber key and all that. Okay, so what happens is once you have this suppression list, I can actually come in when I do the send. Okay, I can go here and then go to the suppression list, and then I can click on that and say add to the suppression list here. I cannot add a suppression list to targeted. It can only be added to the excluded and suppressed list set. Okay, so if you have any list of users that you want to be like suppressed for all your sends, you can do that. Okay, so that is the basic like things that you need to know about like the additional type of list that you can use along with your data extension sends. Okay, the publication list and the suppression list. Okay, so we covered these two. Okay, so now let me show you, like I showed you yesterday, a data extension, and I'll show you how to import into a data extension, right? So we saw yesterday how to import data into what is that? List. Okay, subscriber list. Okay, so today we'll look at like, I have a sendable data extension here called NTO customer. Okay, and let me show you the fields. So these are the fields that we have, and I have a sample CSV file. Okay, that has these data in. So I'll quickly check if this particular customer is there in our all subscribers as well. So yesterday when we actually imported data into a list, what did we find? Like, we initially it was not there in the all subscribers, but when after we imported the subscriber into a list, it automatically got reflected in the all subscribers list, right? But in the data extension, when you import records, even if it's a sendable data extension and if it's a subscriber, if it is mapped to a subscriber key as well, when you import the data, it does not get reflected immediately into the all subscribers. That doesn't happen, right? It will only get reflected when you do the send, and then you map it using a publication list or to the all subscribers list. So that is something you need to know as well. Okay, meaning you can keep as many subscribers or contacts in your data extension. It will not show up in your all subscribers list till you do the first send for them. Okay, so let me go here and into records, and we will import this data in. Give me 1 second. Okay, import. So same options like how we saw yesterday, like for the list, a very similar interface. So I'll select NTO customer. Okay, you will have the comma, delimiters tab, or any other delimiters that you want to give. Now there is one major difference from what we saw yesterday from a list and a data extension. This is something important that you need to know as well. You have your regular add and update, add only, update only as well, which we saw in the list import. There is an additional option called overwrite. Okay, so overwrite is primarily what it does is it will delete everything in your target data extension. Okay, if there's any records or any data in that, it will delete everything and then put everything that you have in your file into that particular data extension. Okay, so it'll just clean up everything in your target and refresh it with whatever you're uploading. Okay, so that is an option that sometimes we might use during our automations, or if you want to bring in fresh data every time that's coming in, and if you don't want to keep add or updating it, you can do that. Now overwrite is the only one that does not need a primary key. So these other three, it always requires a primary key. When you try to do the updates, it will require for a primary key on your data extension. So keep that in mind. Okay. So now if I go ahead and click next, the second part of this will be the mapping. So in list also we had to do a mapping. Here it's slightly different. You can have three different options to do a mapping. One is map by header row, one by ordinal, and one map manually. Most of the times, if your columns in your file match with the data extension columns, it will do the mapping automatically for you. In this particular case, the required fields are these two, so the custom ID. So as long as that is there, because it's a primary key, it will let you go forward. And then if you have, if you're doing map by ordinal, it will be like every column. So this one you have to be very careful, unless and until each column is correctly mapped in the same order as a data extension. Don't use that. Manually is sometimes if the names don't match, and if you know what the mapping is going to be, if you want to manually map it, you can do that as well. Okay. In our case, we'll just use the map by header row because the names are the same. And then finally, it will just do the review, make sure everything is correct. And saying if you want to give your email address, it will notify you. Let's say if it's a large set of data, it will be actually queued and then it will get processed in the background. Okay, so you might not have to wait for it to finish. It will notify you and send you an email as soon as it is done. Then you can come back and check. Okay. So in our case, we will just say it said it'll notify you when the process completes, and you can close the window. Because we just imported just 5 records, hopefully it will get done fast. So we'll just refresh and come back. So let's see. Intio still not there. Okay, it's showing 5 records now. So as you can see, the 5 records that we saw earlier, it's actually now showing up here. Now, if I go back to the all subscribers here and try to click find now again, hopefully it shouldn't be there. Yeah, still says 0 subscribers found. So this is something different that you would see from when you do a list like import and a data extension import, something that you need to keep in mind. If I send an email to this data extension now and I map it using a publication list back to the all subscribers, then these will actually show up in all subscribers as well. Okay. Okay, so I think we've looked at most of the features here. Okay, so then we'll come to important part on called data relationships. So we've seen how to create data extensions, and we've told specifically data extensions are meant for because you want to be able to relate tables, they can have related data, relational data. I can have customer, I can have order, etc. Right? So assume that I have a scenario like this. Okay, I have a customer a table that I want with customer information. Okay, and then I have order history table that actually shows what orders were placed by the particular customer on what order date. Okay, and then I got the information about each order, so if I have a particular order, okay, what are the product IDs it will have, so I can have multiple rows here for the same order but different product IDs. So that is with a composite key. This is one example where I have a composite key. So if I only use an order ID as a single primary key, it will actually fail. I cannot use either product ID or order ID. I would actually use a composite key here, meaning an order ID, product ID would be the combination for the primary key here. Okay, and then the quantity for that. And then if for the product ID, if I want to refer to the product name, the brand and the price and all that, I can refer to this table. So this is just a view of okay, what are the various data extensions I might be having with respect to the customer and this order details. And then if I want to use that in Email Studio, for filtering and all that, which I'll show you later in segmentation, I need to be able to relate them. So that is why we use data relationships. Okay. So how we do that is we go to something called data relationships here. Okay. So I have these tables here, the ones that I showed you right now, the customer ID, I have order details, order history, and the product catalog. So if I go to data relationships, I can go and create a data relationship. So I've already created 2 here. So I'll just show you how that actually works out. So if I want to create a relationship between the customer and the order table, so it's the order history, right? So it'll be, you can select the data extension that you want, the customer DE, and then you look at the other one, the order history table. So it's customer, scroll down, select your order history table. Automatically it will show you which are the fields which thinks there is a mapping. Okay, and if you think there is any additional mapping that you need to do, you can do that as well, but that doesn't match, so you can delete that. So ideally the customer ID field in both matches, so it will say, and you can store this as a relationship. Okay, we'll see later, like when we do the segmenting and filtering, where this is going to be used, but this is how you actually specify the relation between these 2 data extensions. Okay, so right now I've actually created, one is the order customer to order history, and then order history to order details, which I have here. So these 2 relations I've actually linked already there, and I've actually created those 2 here, and we will see how to use that when we do a filtering in a few slides from now. Okay. Any question on data relationship? Okay. Okay, so before we move into segmentation, I want to take a few minutes to explain a few more categories on data extensions. Okay, so far what we have seen in data extensions has been a regular data extension, it's standard data extension. Okay, when you go into your Marketing Cloud instance, if you have Marketing Cloud Connect, which is so you to connect to CRM, you have the option. I mean, you'll actually see 2 more type of data extensions as well. Okay, so one is called Salesforce data extension and one is synchronized data extension. The name sometimes can be misleading, so you need to be careful, what each stands for. Okay, synchronized data extension is where you can go configure in Contact Builder. You can go and configure saying, okay, these are the objects that I want to sync with from between CRM and Marketing Cloud, and send the data from those objects into Marketing Cloud. Okay, so it will create a data extension in Marketing Cloud. Let's say for contacts, if I want to bring in a set of contacts from CRM, every time a contact is created, I want it to reflect here based on some filter condition. I will actually configure that in Contact Builder, and then I can say bring that over. Okay, and then that will come in and will be termed as a synchronized data extension. So this one, as a name sounds, it will always be in sync. Like every 15 minutes or up to 1 hour, you can keep it polling. It will go automatically go check and see if there is any latest updates to your contacts. It will bring that data over depending on what data filters you have configured. It will bring that data over into your Marketing Cloud instance. Okay. Salesforce data extension, on the other hand, there is no syncing happening. Okay, so the data is basically it will get created when you try to send an email to a report or a campaign. Okay, so when you try to that's something you can do as well, either from CRM or from within Marketing Cloud. You can access a Salesforce report or a campaign and you can send it to them, and that report probably would be a lead or a campaign member or or a contact. It will be one of those. You cannot just simply send it to any custom object that you want. I mean, if you want to get that. So when you get that created here, then the Salesforce data extension gets created. When you do that send, it pushes the tracking data back to Marketing Cloud. Okay, so that's one thing. Like when you want to send an email to a particular lead or a contact, automatically the tracking data basically means, have they opened the email, have they clicked on it, what is the engagement that they have done with the email, right? So you get that information in Marketing Cloud. That information you can see it back in Marketing Cloud as well. If you go to that particular record and if you have configured it on the contact side or the lead side, you can see it. Okay. Now, synchronized data extension and Salesforce data extension, in both cases, you cannot go and update back to Salesforce, okay, or the CRM side. So that is a common misconception. People think no, okay, now because the data is synchronized, it means it is bidirectional. No, okay, all it means is the data from CRM flows into Marketing Cloud, and you can use that for marketing purposes. Okay, the only data that you can send back is the tracking data that you can use here using when you do a send to a particular report or an object in Salesforce. Okay, so the way, there is another way to actually update your CRM, which can be done through a journey. So which we will probably look at in one of the future sessions when we cover Journey Builder. So that's a different way, but using the data extension that you see here, you will not be able to directly go and assuming you have a contact data extension in your Marketing Cloud. If you think you go and update that field, you cannot update the fields over there, and it does not not going to be reflecting back in Sales Cloud or Service Cloud as well. Okay. So this is a very high level overview of like the different types of data extensions and what you can use it for. So as you can see, the regular DE is something that is very commonly used for like most of our marketing cloud functions. Okay. As you can see, synchronized DE, you can only send the data in and you can filter it. You can do some AMP script on it, but then you cannot use it for journeys and all that, like, so you cannot directly use it. You have to filter the data from a synchronized data extension into a regular data extension, and then you can use it. Okay. Salesforce DE, you can use it for like AMP script or sending emails to. Even synchronized DE, you cannot directly send an email. So for instance, if you actually get a contact like in through synchronized DE directly to that particular data extension, you cannot use it. Okay, there is a different way in a journey that you can actually use an entry event and then you can do it. Like if you are using a Salesforce event for that we will cover. But then if I'm having a contact or a lead synchronized data extension, and if you try to use that in your email sent, you will not be able to use that. Okay. So this is just a high level view of this one, just to keep this very useful. Like in future, if you're working in Marketing Cloud, you need to know that what are data extension types you can use for your sends and all that. Okay. Okay, this is one. Before we go into segmentation, there's something important that you need to know as well. Like the major difference between a list and a data extension. So like one of you asked earlier, like so a list is a quite very simple data structure that you will use. So please go through the best practices of when you would use a list and when you would use a data extension. If it's very simple that you want to keep a small set of subscribers, like preferably less than 500,000. Like and if you want like limited number of subscriber attributes, that is most important. Like I said, everything in a list is a subscriber, right? And it follows the preference and the profile attributes. You cannot store custom different data fields for different lists. You cannot do that, right? So for in those particular cases, like depending on use case, you will actually go for a data extension. So if you're having like complex relational data that you want to bring in, if you want to do complex development, so journeys like APIs and all that, they all actually require data extension. So you need to make sure like you, depending on the use case. So whenever you, especially if you're going to write the exam as well, they will really evaluate you on behind the scenes if you understood what list is and what data extension is and what is it used for. In future, when you actually work on an implementation as well, you have to first understand like okay, what is the customer ask, like in this particular solution that I need to do, what will suffice? Will a list help with this, or should I actually go and actually create a data extension? What am I going to be using it for? So keep all that in mind before you start even working on the data model part. Okay. Okay, so we'll move into data segmentation. So there is two ways that we actually would do segmentation, both for list and for data extensions. It's both very similar. It's called filtering, and one is the random group, the filtered group and the random group. So when I go to a list here, so yesterday we created a sample list. Okay, here, right? Sample list 2. So anytime you segment, so segment is nothing but you are trying to create a smaller subset of a particular list of subscribers or a data extension based on some condition. Okay, because you don't want to like send emails to a large number of people. Like let's say your list or like maybe your data extension is quite large, like it's a large number of people. So rather than sending it out like a particular email to everyone, sometimes you might have a use case like okay, I want to like target specific people. Okay, maybe belonging to a particular state, or maybe I want to like based on an age group, I want to like target them, or maybe based on a gender, I want to like target them, like or maybe a loyalty member, right? So there are multiple use cases that you can come across, and then how do you actually like get that data out like from the larger list? So that is where segmentation comes in. Okay, so in this particular case, we have a list of subscribers here that we imported yesterday. Okay, and if we want to like segment this one, so the first way that you can actually do it, so anytime you segment a list, it will create something called a group. Okay, so that is very important. Any segmentation done on a list will automatically create a group. It is not called a list again. Okay, so if I go and create, it will ask you what type of segmentation do you want to do, filtered or a random one. Okay, so we'll look at filtered first. So filtered is, it'll ask you like, okay, what list do you want to filter? So in this particular case, I will do sample list 2 that we created. Okay, and this is sometimes it was earlier referred to as drag and drop segmentation. Okay, because it is something very similar to our report builder and all that. You can just drag and drop this for filtering, right? And or it's a point and click way to do it. Now there are more sophisticated ways of doing like segmentation using queries and all that, which we will look at in a future session. Like when we do automation, or we'll cover that. But then very simplistic way of like getting filtering done. You can actually go. And because this is a list, you will always come across profile and preference attributes, right? So that is something that you can actually use. So in this particular case, if I want to get all the subscribers in this list who have email opt-in is true, and if I want like, the gender is male, okay? So maybe I want to target all the people like, the gens, I want to like, send them a particular communication. I can actually go and create this filter, okay? And then okay, if I do save and build, I will say male opted in subscribers. Okay, can do click. So it will create that group and then run that like, so in this particular case, out of those 9 people, it actually showed me that it had 3 folks. Okay, so you will see that, these are the male and these are the 3 opted in. So this is a smaller set from that 19 that we had in that original list, right? So if I go back to the groups, you will see that automatically created in for you. Like, it will show the type as filtered. It's a filtered list, or sorry, a group, and it has the subscriber count as 3, right? Now, the second type of the segmentation that we saw is random. Okay, this one, like if I choose a list, I can even choose a group for a random one. For filtering, I can only choose a list. Okay, so keep that in mind. So let's say I took this sample list 2. Let's say like, this one is a very small example, but most of the times like your list will be slightly large, right? So you probably have like around close to like, maybe 100,000, 200,000 people. And you probably want to like, send a small, randomly you want to choose a small segments and you want to send them some communication, right? If that's the case, you have a campaign that you want to send it out rather than sending it to a lot of people. You can actually go and randomly say, okay, I want to select maybe 10% or like of people, or a number of folks. Like, let's say I want to send it to 20% of the folks, and I want like maybe 2-3 different groups like that. Okay, so I can go and select that way, like 20%. Okay. If I select like this, it gives me 3 different segments that it creates. Like the remaining I'm not using. So I don't want to like use it all. Or if I want, I can click on add remainder and add that as well. Okay. But if I'm saying, okay, randomly give me. So in this particular case, you can only choose the size with the percentage or a number. Okay. You cannot specify which subscriber goes where. Okay. So it will give you like, if I create now, if I say save and build, it will create 3 segments for me. Okay. 3 groups for me. Okay. By this name, or if I want, I can change the name as well. And then I can send emails to each of these. Okay, so that is one way to do it. So sometimes you have use cases where you want to randomly like segregate like people and segment them and create a smaller subset. So this also is quite useful if you want to. Okay, any question on the segmentation for list into groups? Okay, so now we will look at for data extension how to do it. So if I have a customer DE here, so if I want to like create same thing. So yesterday we saw we can create a standard data extension, right? Now if I want to create a filtered or a random data, so we'll look at filtered, same concept like how we saw for the list. So I'll choose the source data extension here. So I'll choose the customer one. Okay, there's 100 records. So if I say like, I want like, email, sorry, not email. So if gender is equal to something, okay, say it's, I think here it's not a top 10. So you can say male. If I want to use that, I can use that. And then I can directly go ahead and save and build. It will create a filter data extension for me, right? So let's say if I was using the different one, that there was another one for NTO. That is a better example. So let me show you that one, the NTO customer. Okay. So sometimes like, I have a better use case. So what if I want to use somebody who's an NTO loyalty member, okay, and if the email opt-in is true, okay, in this particular case, if I build it, it will give me this list of all the subscribers that I have who's an NTO member, and an email. So I might have a campaign where like, I have specifically for loyalty members who have opted in. I want to send them some special coupon or a voucher, like, because they are one of our loyalty members, right? So in this particular case, I can segment that out and get it, like, but in our case, we just have 5 records. So probably will give you like 1 or 2 records only. Like in most cases, you will have a very big list, data extension, and you'll be able to like, segment that out. Okay. Now, remember we created data relationship earlier, right? So how do we see that? In this particular case, you will see that, the only the DE that you can see is this particular NTO customer, right? So if I go back to the customer DE, let me go here. This is the customer one. Okay. So here you will notice something called data relationship, which was not there in the other one, right? Because we created a data relationship using this customer DE table as one of the sources, right? So if I add that, you will see that there's additional options coming here. Okay. So what you see here is like, these are the 2 data relationships that you created. One was customer to order history, and the other one is order history to order details. So this is quite useful when, let's say, you want to like, get a filter a particular data extension based on these relational conditions. For example, let's say I want to know a customer who placed an order with us, which was after within the last 7 days. Okay. So it will actually be something like this. Okay. So the order date is after today minus 7 days. Like, so anything that was placed in the last 7 days, I will be able to know. Okay, so I'll be able to get the list of all the customers from this particular DE that satisfies this condition. Now, sometimes I want to like, email a campaign out to like, for somebody, or send out a specific voucher or an offer to somebody who's actually purchased a specific product from us. Okay. In that particular case, I can even include like this. Okay. The product ID is equal to something, and they have actually like bought from us in the last 7 days. So you see how we've actually now gone through 3 different data extensions, like, and you use the relational data to like, filter and get you the data. Okay. So it's quite flexible. Like, you can easily do based on the data relationship, how we can do it. Now, one thing you need to really understand about filtering here, it's inner join. So those who are familiar with SQL and all that, like, or if you're not, please do read it up as well. It's actually like, the conditions have to satisfy for both when you're actually like, doing the relationship, like, so in this particular case, whatever I get from the filter will be like, from this particular data extension only. I will not get any result columns from the second or the third level data extension that you are mapping it to. Okay, all the columns that I will get in the resulting data extension will be from the source data extension. So exactly the same fields, it will be a mirror replica of that, but they will be satisfying the condition where they have an order date that is like, today minus 7, and the particular product ID that you specify. Okay, those data will not come in your data extension. For that, you have to use query activities, query activities later, which we will look in a future session. Okay. The thing that you will also need to know is like, you will only get the customers who actually match this condition. Like, so when you do joins, if you're familiar with joins, sometimes you will say like, I want to know all the list of customers, but I also want to get customers who may or may not have that. And I want to see like, okay, if they have an order date, show that order date that is actually less than 7 days. So those things and all you cannot do using filters directly like that here. For that, you will use query activities, right? Directly, if there is an easy way to like, do an inner join, you want to get a data, you can get that through this. Okay, so keep that in mind, especially when you do filtering. Certain cases, if it is not possible, like sometimes you have asked people who has to ask me like, can you do a count of like, okay, count of, the particular order ID is greater. You cannot do all that here, like, so more complex type of SQLs, those kind of things you cannot do here. You have to use query activities for that. Okay, this is very simplistic way of like, point and click, how do you filter, you can use in data extension here. Okay. The last type of segmentation that we have to see now is the random data extension. So very similar to how we saw the random group. If I go to the customer one, click on OK. So same thing, same concept. I can click add a data extension. I can specify the size. So randomly I can choose. And again, like I said, you will not be able to specify. The only thing you can specify is like the percentage or the number of records that you want to like, send it. So you can change the numbers. So if I want the first one to be 20, the others to be 10, this one to be like 15, it's still possible. It's totally flexible. And if I want to add the remainder automatically, like, because sometimes you may not be able to calculate, like, if it's a large set, you cannot, you just click add remainder, automatically you will get that as well. Okay. So if you click save and build, it will create 4 different DE segments for you that you can actually send emails to. Okay. So that's how we do segmentation for list and data extensions. Any questions on segmentation?
Hey Shibu, I have one question.
Yes.
So I understand this can be done with query, but my question is like, can we see, like, can we find people by filtering who clicked or opened an email in last 7 days?
Yes,
or...
yes. Sorry. I actually, thank you for reminding. So that is something that I missed to show as well. So there is something called measures. Let me open filter here. So filter data extension. It's also in list as well. So if I go to customer here. Okay, so here you will see measures, right? So these are actually like, system built measures, like, so if I want to see the list of customers who've actually, like, or the subscribers who have not clicked emails in the last 30 days, okay, or if you have a specific email that you actually want to take track that they have actually clicked, you can actually go and create a measure. Like, these are standard ones that are already there, but let's say if you want to like go and create one, you can actually go to subscribers measures and create here. Okay. So if you go here, you can say what type of event are you looking at. So in our case, if you're saying like, I've actually sent a particular email and I want to know if that particular email, if people have opened it, right? So you can say from here, I can configure the email name is equal to something. Okay. If it is a particular URL that was clicked, like, if you are to click, then you can say, okay, what is that email that was sent and what was the link information, the link name, right? So you can specify that as well. Okay. So like that, you can create your custom measure if you want, and you can use that in your filter.
So I have one more question.
Yes.
So if we have been sending kind of like emails in last 3 months, and we have a particular banner, for example, grocery banner, say, in all those emails, and I need to create a segment of people who have been clicking on that grocery specific banner. I can
create a measure,
right?
Yes, you can create a measure, correct.
Okay.
So you need to make sure you have a link name for that particular one, create it, and then try it out, like, internally first, like, if you're able to track that, and then send it out. Oh, sorry, filter it out. Sorry.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions, team? Let me see what is left. Yeah, only unsubscribe is left. So before we move into the last section for today, I just wanted to check if there's any other questions. Okay. So let me come to unsubscribes. So this is also quite important. So you need to understand the different types of unsubscribes that can happen in Marketing Cloud. Okay. So there are 3 major types. One is global unsubscribe, one is master unsubscribe, and the other one is on the list level, which is list unsubscribe. Okay. Global unsubscribe is something that happens on a outside your account as well. If somebody actually goes and registers a specific complaint and they actually go and say, like, I do not want to receive any communication from any Marketing Cloud account and all that, or any communication from any ESPs. So that actually will get recorded on the Marketing Cloud level. Like, it's not just for your account, but for any company that is using Marketing Cloud, they will not be able to send email to that person. Gilda, correct me if I'm wrong, like, it's not something that we can request from support. Is that automatically done at the Marketing Cloud level?
Oh, could you repeat the question?
For the global unsubscribe, how does the subscriber request for that?
Oh, well, you actually can control it through the business unit level.
Okay, so we can actually raise a support ticket for that?
Yes.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay, great.
But keep in mind, when it comes to unsubscribe, it's how you want to configure the unsubscribe to work. Do you want it? And I think you're doing a great job explaining it. So I'll just wait till and see if there are any questions coming out of this. I think this is the most important thing that everyone should really pay careful attention to, because per CAN-SPAM laws, when somebody is requested to unsubscribe, legally we have to take action and make sure that they're unsubscribed the correct way in the marketing cloud.
Yep. Thanks, Gilda. So basically for your account, you probably have to be very careful about these two, the master unsubscribe and the list unsubscribe. Master unsubscribe is the one where they actually tell you unsubscribe all. Yesterday, remember when we were showing the subscriber list, I showed you an option where you can click on unsubscribe all. And that means at the all subscriber list level, it will show you as unsubscribed, which means you cannot send any communication out to that person from Marketing Cloud, okay, from your Marketing Cloud account. List unsubscribe is at the list level. So remember the diagram that I showed you earlier, either you send it to a particular list or to a publication, a data extension through a publication list, then your unsubscribe is actually tracked at that level, okay, not at the all subscribers list level. So the good thing is you can still receive communication for other data extension through a publication list or a different list. But for these specific list that or the publication list that you have unsubscribed, you will not receive any communication. Okay, so there are different ways that you can go and do this as well. One is in subscriber properties. So let me go here. So if I go close, so this is a particular subscriber that I have. If I go into the properties here, you will see this unsubscribe from all, right? So if I go and click on this one, this person will automatically become unsubscribed. It will show as unsubscribed here. If this person is part of any other list, you will be able to see if this person is there, and I can go and click on that particular list and then deactivate there as well. Okay. Okay, let me see here. And then when you import, okay, so when you import a particular subscriber, you can actually change the status, and you can actually put the status and map it to the profile attribute. When you're actually doing it as part of that, the status, when you map it in, you can mark that as unsubscribed as well. So sometimes you might be saying okay, this particular person has bounced, and then you don't want them to receive any communication. You can export that data out into a CSV, change the status to unsubscribed, and then import that back into the all subscribers list. So next time that person will not receive that email. Okay, you can do it both at the all subscribers level and as well as a specific list level as well. Keep in mind, you cannot do a reactivate on an unsubscribed person using an import. Like I mentioned yesterday, if the status is already showing as unsubscribed, if you try to import it as active, it will not work. You have to manually do it, or through programmatically, you have to go and change it. Okay. Unsubscribe center, like the one-click unsubscribe, you can actually do it. So this basically what it means is when you get an email at the bottom, you will see the unsubscribe link, right? So when you click on that, it'll actually it actually says, okay, I'm unsubscribing from this particular communication, right? So that particular list or the publication list that you actually where the send came from, it has already unsubscribed you once you click this. But then you will also see an additional option here. If you wish to unsubscribe from all, click on here. So from there, I can do the all unsubscribe as well, like the master unsubscribe. Okay. Then the other two options are from your subscription center. The subscription center, like I showed you earlier, you will be able to see all your publications. So if I go and specifically, so these are also lists like the publication list, right? So I can uncheck from here, like any list or any publication list that is available publicly, I can uncheck from here and I can update. Okay, so automatically, if it is unchecked, it means I have unsubscribed from those lists. And from the master unsubscribe as well, I can update it as well. So I will get updated as unsubscribed in these based on what I update here from the subscription center. Profile center, slightly different. You will not be able to see your publication list or any of the list. It's primarily for you to maintain your profile and preference attributes, whatever you have actually exposed. Okay, you will see that here on your profile center. So remember, there was a field that we had in our profile attribute, that max daily send count that I had created. That was a hidden field. So that will not get shown here. Only any field that I have actually shown as public will get shown to the customer. So if I go and update any data here, it will get updated. In addition, if I want to unsubscribe from all, I will be able to do that from the profile center as well. Okay. So you need to know that you can actually do an master unsubscribe from all of these options, including API. So sometimes programmatically, let's say you have a custom a custom subscription center or profile center or a custom page where you actually landing page we are sending them to. So if you want to if somebody said, okay, I want to unsubscribe from here, then you can automatically programmatically you can actually come in and unsubscribe them as well. Okay, so there are various options on which you can actually handle unsubscribes. The only thing that you cannot do for a list unsubscribe is on the profile center level. Just keep that in mind. Okay. Yeah, that's all I had on these unsubscribes. And like Gilta mentioned, the next module that we will cover on deliverability, like it's starting the next Wednesday, we will go through the various, like, the laws regarding unsubscribes. Like, there is a CAN-SPAM law, and how do you handle unsubscribes, like, so now that you know, like, what are the various types of unsubscribe and how it comes in, what do you need to do? Like, there is certain conditions that you need to look at, like, if an unsubscribe happens, within 10 days you need to honor it. Like, most of the times it is like quite immediate, like but sometimes if you're using the default one, it's quite immediate, like, unless and until there's a network issue, but it should get reflected quickly. But sometimes you might have your own custom profile center and your subscription center. Like, in that particular cases, you might have maybe a custom job to go and update the status at a later point in time. So the rule is that you have to ensure that it happens within 10 days. Okay. And then if you send out an email like today, that unsubscribe mechanism should be available for the next 30 days. Like, so anybody can open an email that was sent today, 30 days from now, and they can click on unsubscribe and they should still be unsubscribed. So if somebody unsubscribes, okay, and then you do not track that properly in your system and you start sending them emails after that, even though they've unsubscribed, they can raise a complaint and your reputation will go down. You will get marked by the ISPs. It will be a big major problem. Okay. So be very, very careful on that, which is why we were saying earlier, like, people who have unsubscribed, you will ideally try to still keep them in your all subscribers list as unsubscribed, or move them to a suppression list and ensure you use that suppression list always when you send it out. Okay, very important. Don't simply go and delete a person from an unsubscribed person from your all subscribers list without maintaining that suppression list separately. Otherwise, what will happen is in a future import that you do, this customer may come in, like, from one of the data from your old data that you had, it might just come in and they will be showing up as active if you delete it. So there is no way for you to tell, this particular person is actually unsubscribed. Okay, so those things you have to do, and then keep checking your list, like, so you can periodically you can check, like, your all subscribers list and compare it with your suppression list and see any of these people have they actually, like, been populated now as active in your all subscribers list, right? So if that is the case, then you need to, like, remove them or make them unsubscribe. So keep that in mind. Like, otherwise simply you will be wasting space, like, keeping people who are supposed to be suppressed in your all subscribers list. Okay, so those are just some of the practices that you need to follow when you handle unsubscribes. Let me see if there was anything else that I had. Okay, that's pretty much what I had for today. Any questions in the areas that we covered? List, data extensions, segmentation, unsubscribes.
I have a question.
Sure, Maria.
So actually about the unsubscriber list, how it's being handling in Salesforce, is it automatically, or do you need to do something manually? I'm still trying to understand what's happening.
So when you say Salesforce, you mean Marketing Cloud or CRM?
Yes.
Oh,
So
okay,
I was working in MailChimp. That's why I'm trying to compare. I'm so sorry.
no, sorry. Okay, so Marketing Cloud automatically will handle that based on the status. So let me see the status slide that I have. Okay, so do you see the status here? So
Yeah.
if the particular subscriber has been marked as with a status unsubscribed, they will not be sent a communication. Okay, and it depends on where this unsubscribed is. That is the most important part. If the unsubscribed status is on the all subscribers list, no communication will go to that subscriber, irrespective of what is the status of that person in a list or a data extension. Okay, if the status is active in the all subscribers list, then depending upon where you are sending the communication from, like, if it is from a data extension, it will check the publication list. Okay, if you are mapping to the publication list there, if it is active, it will go out. But if it is unsubscribed on that publication list for the data extension, it will not go out. If you're sending it to a list and on that list level it is unsubscribed, it will not go out there as well. Okay. So you have to go and check, like, okay, like sometimes it might be active on the list or the publication list level. Okay, and you might be sending the email out to them and thinking, like, okay, they should be receiving the email. but they're still not receiving it, like, so then what happens is like you will have to go and see like, okay, what happened. So ideally, like, what happens is like from the subscriber status, the all subscribers, it might be unsubscribed. It will get updated into the publication list and the other list that you send. It will get updated when you do the send, like, if it is unsubscribed. Okay, so always check the status, like, where in the all subscriber status is the most important one. If somebody is not receiving an email, it's probably because like, they have been unsubscribed at that list level. Okay,
I see.
so Marketing Cloud handles it automatically. Like, you don't have to go and do any specific, like, behind the scenes saying if it is unsubscribed, don't send an email. No, it is understood. So both the undeliverable one and the unsubscribed, Marketing Cloud will not send an email out to that person anymore. If it is bounced, so there is a bounced management flow that is pretty useful. And if you look at the documentation in Salesforce also, they actually show it. Depending on the type of bounce and the number of days that has passed, it will try to resend to that same person again next time an email is sent. Okay, or if it is past 15 days, and then if it is like the number of bounces have been more than 3, then it will get changed to undeliverable. It will not send anymore. But if it's a hard bounce and if it's coming from a trusted ISP, like, Gmail, Hotmail, Roadrunner and all that, then automatically it will change to undeliverable as well. So it depends on the on a use case basis, like, what type of bounce it was and from which domain it came from. Okay.
Okay, I see. Thank you so much.
Cool.
Yeah, I have a question, Shibu.
Yes.
When we talk about the global unsubscribe list and the master unsubscribe list, how we will get to know how the person is unsubscribed? He unsubscribed from our subscription center or profile center, or from backend, from globally, he came to us for unsubscribe. As we don't have any global unsubscribe list in our business unit, so we have only all a subscriber list.
Yeah, that one I'm not very sure. Gilda, do you know if it actually will, how do we keep track of that in our system? Do we need to keep track of that? The global unsubscribe also?
There's a report you could run in the Marketing Cloud to see who's globally unsubscribed from the business unit.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, so
I think you have a section to discuss reporting, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, when we get into that section, I'll be sure to be on, or maybe you and I could touch base on that so that we could show everybody how to run some of these reports.
Okay. Cool. All right. Sounds good. Yep. In that particular case, Azim, maybe like, we can add those folks into the suppression list, like, if you know that they're like globally unsubscribed, like, so that's possible.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, team? Okay, going once, twice, thrice. If nothing, then I'll give you guys back 15 minutes. Now our next session is going to be on next Tuesday, same time. We will actually be having design best practices, and Gilda has like graciously accepted to like, give us a very good brief on the design best practices for email marketing. So thank you, Gilda.
You're welcome. Can I just make 2 announcements?
Sure. Please go ahead.
So next Tuesday, and I don't know if the time will work for everyone, we're having a 1-hour session on AmpScript where we have 2 amazing speakers, Elliot Harper and Adam Spriggs, who wrote the book on AmpScript. It's a 1-hour session. If it will be recorded, and don't worry if you're unable to attend. If you register for the event, I'll be what I usually do is, even if you're unable to attend, I'll still send a recording out to you. And I'm sending an announcement today. I'm also having another session, which I think is extremely important for everyone to attend. Next Thursday, we're going to have Al Iverson. He's director of deliverability. He's going to do a session at 10 a.m. on Thursday on deliverability best practices. So this is where you'll learn all about DKIM keys, SPF keys, IP addresses. What's important to understanding the concept behind deliverability is it'll help you with problem solving and understanding if there are any issues when you send an email. Is it the DKIM keys? Is it the SPF? Was it not configured? Was the business unit or account not configured correctly? Al Iverson has been with the Salesforce organization for well over 15 years. He is the man. So I am going to send out an email on Twitter and LinkedIn announcing the session. It's at 10 a.m. So hopefully, I think that's like 7 p.m. your time, I think. So hopefully everyone's able to attend and let others know. It's just really important to understand the fundamentals of deliverability. Because within one blink, your account, I've been in situations where my entire business unit was shut down because of DKIM keys not configured correctly, or emails were just bouncing because the ISPs didn't recognize that. That's some of the things I spoke about on, I think it was on Tuesday.
Yep.
So Al Iverson has agreed to talk about that. So please, if you can attend, please attend next Thursday.
Awesome. Thank you, Gilda. Okay, I see a couple of questions on the chat. So Sue, so I have the retention policy here. So let me quickly go through that for you. So what we said is like when you configure data extensions, you need to be able to like specify like, how long do you want to keep the data? So you can do it on the individual records level or on the all records level. Like if you select the individual records, you can specify like, either days, weeks, months, how long do you want to keep it? Okay. If you select the all records, it means like, all the records will be deleted from the data extension. If you select all records and data extensions, it means it will include the data extension as well. Like, so even the structure will get deleted. So sometimes, like, let's say you have a case where, I want to do a data extension that I created for a May campaign. And after that May campaign, I don't need that at all. Like, it's a waste of like, keeping that space. So what I will do is like, I will check on all records and data extensions, and I probably will select on and maybe give a date in June to say delete everything in June. Okay. So, or otherwise, like I can give like, specific records if it is older than 7 days or 10 days, because I don't need to send anything beyond that. I can actually click on individual records and say after, 10 days, delete that particular record. So any data that is older than 10 days, I don't even want to like, use it. Sometimes I will have like, okay, if I am having all records that are coming in, after a particular day, I don't want to like, keep it. But if I click on reset period on import, which means between that time period, if a new data comes in, like, and gets updated to your data extension, again, this period will reset. So if I initially said like, after 10 days, go ahead and delete all records, on maybe on the 7th day, let's say an import came in, then it'll again reset that counter from the 7th day. Again, for next 10 days, it will wait. If no data came in during that next 10 days, automatically those records will get deleted. Okay. So there are different ways depending upon use case that you can configure this, and it's always recommended that you do this, like, so that you don't end up with a lot of data and data extensions in your org, right? So always like some cases you might keep it for a longer time, but yeah, keep reviewing it periodically. And there is also like a caveat, like, if it goes beyond, I think 100,000 records or so, you cannot change the retention settings. So be careful about that. Like, so upfront, when you create the data extension, make sure you understand what is it used for, and then go and edit it. Okay, then the other one from Lizanne was when you import non-sendable, there is a duplicate on a field, will it dedupe automatically? No, unless and until it's a primary key. Okay, so if you're actually like, trying to import on a primary key, and if it's like duplicate, automatically it will show an error, and you have the option to skip the record if it's an error. Okay, so that is the only way that you can actually like deduplicate. Okay, any other questions, team? Okay, I don't see any more questions on chat. Hopefully this was useful. So we'll talk to you guys next week, next Tuesday, same time. Thank you all for joining, and we'll speak to you then. And
thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Good night.
Thank you.
Night.
Thanks.
Thanks, Shivu.